Hello, I'm in America now, and it's very peculiar to be in America when that archetypical American story, the mass shooting, happens. Obviously, it's just happened, and there's not been the assessment, the full assessment of why is this happening. But it's interesting to see how news operates because in any case, obviously it's tragic and our focus should be on the victims. But notice that's not how news generally works. You know, there'll be at some point a photograph, won't there, a montage photograph of the already 50 confirmed dead, and surely more will die. In the case of a Muslim perpetrator, the narrative is unpacked of how this is connected to the ideology of Islam being a terrorist ideology. When it's a white perpetrator, as it is in this case Stephen Paddock, then there's a less attractive narrative around gun laws, Nevada being a state where gun laws are very relaxed. It's interesting that America's idea about freedom to purchase arms continues to hold the imagination so strongly even after Sandy Hook. And as I say, it's sort of tragic that when I'm looking at this, I'm not thinking, what, 50 people have died? Instead, it's like one of those things has happened. It is already normalised by virtue of the fact it happens a lot. There are certain tropes and cliches in how this event will be reported. But what I don't think will be reported is that when this sort of thing happens frequently, it's an indication that there is a kind of a social psychosis, a mass unhappiness. The other thing I've noted in America, I'm here obviously because of my book. I've written a book about mental health and personal development and how to change your consciousness. There's an opioid epidemic. There's a president that sort of sends a tweet like warm condolences, God bless you, exclamation mark. That seems like the realisation of an odd unconscious force, a kind of loathing. The kind of analysis I'm using here will be familiar to people that recognise the format that James Baldwin uses in his kind of analysis of the slave trade and persecution of African Americans, and which is, as you can learn a little bit about in the film I Am Not Your Negro. In order to create the category of Negro, you need to repress an aspect of yourself. So the dominant, the hegemonic force of the sort of white population, I'm not talking about ordinary white people, they're not in the White House, they're not dominating things and governing the country. I'm talking about the white as in power, sorry for doing that. In the terms of that analysis, America needs to create the Negro category in order that, one, you know, for economic reasons, but two, to have the very notion of otherness. Now, when we apply this critical theory to mass shootings, what is it that's not being addressed? What is it that's bubbling up from under the surface in the form of violence of this kind? I would argue that it's extreme unhappiness, extreme darkness, and unaddressed darkness. Now, it would be it's convenient when it's a Muslim perpetrator, because you can say it's ISIS, they're maniacs, they don't respect our freedoms. But when it is a white person, then it becomes a lone wolf, a psychopath, a mentally ill person. And I wouldn't query that the person is mentally ill, but I would say that this social phenomena occurring this regularly, and our ability to see it as kind of normal, is an indication that we need to address the root cause. And the root cause is always the consciousness of human beings on an individual and social level, i.e. people are very, very, very unhappy, and manifestations of this unhappiness are everywhere. So we need to change the systems by which we live. Of course, stronger gun laws, but perhaps more important than that, the way we address our own mental health, the way we address our own spirit, because we are manifesting on mass levels a kind of darkness. Sympathy, obviously, to the victims necessarily say that, but really what is important, I think, is to prevent this happening, and this won't stop happening unless we change our mentality. That's well, true news seems like a trite thing to say. It's my analysis of a terrible, terrible situation.